for those who don't know, Jewel Riders, which was originally a concept based on Anne McCaffrey's Dragonriders of Pern novels, and which is kind of an odd place to start for a magical girl toy line.
But it always was. I mean, that whole series sold extremely well.
Oh yeah,
for female readers, and so it was a good starting point for that. And it had never been exploited, in terms of TV. And there were how many novels? At least a dozen.
There's about 20, I want to say.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you're right. Yes, because Todd McFarlane wrote a bunch, and not Todd.
Todd McCaffrey, her son.
McCaffrey, sorry.
Yeah.
And then I guess there was a daughter too who just started writing.
Yeah, there was just another one released in the last year or two.
Yes, and I've nenever read hers, but I read some of.
It's sitting on my shelf unread as of yet.
Please tell me how it is.
Yeah,
because I read his and it was like, it was just it was a copy, and he kind of went back to what Mom was doing before and just renamed. It was kind of like watching Star Wars, Star Wars Episode 7. Yeah, they just happened to be an awful lot like 4, 5, and 6.
Oh no, we need to blow up this big planet weapon.
Yeah,
from the Not Empire.
Yeah.
So see, now here's my idea though, really quick, is that when you're talking about the fact that the Anne McCaffrey books had done so well with a young audience, or at least with a female audience, but was that more like teenage? Because again, the focus of usually an animated series is going to be more kids. So I really don't think that children are reading these books, because to me, the first thing that immediately makes me think of was the fact that the Black Cauldron. Now, I don't know how successful that chronicle actually was. I mean, it sounds like it was mildly successful amongst the fantasy people, but then when Disney turned it into a children's cartoon, it just didn't jive. So that's kind of my initial red flags.
You are certainly right about that. I mean, that bombed. There certainly was a fan following of that book series, and the Disney version took so many liberties to it that the fans didn't like it either.
Mm-hmm. It's sort of like if you ever watched that old animated Lord of the Rings.
Well, when Disney takes liberties, they're more improvements, like adding fun songs and simplifying the story in such a way where it's more intriguing. And I don't think that any of the changes that they made to the Black Cauldron were actually improvements.
You mean you didn't like Gurgi?
Gurgi like Munchies and Crunchies.
Exactly.
But I think there is a specific set of the Anne McCaffrey books, Dragon Song, Dragon Singer, and Dragon Drums, that focus on a younger set of characters who are musicians. Music is sort of the way they teach kids in Pern, and the musicians are the people who kind of raise children and, go on their own adventures outside of the actual Dragon Ride. The Harpers, thank you. I was like, I knew there was a word for it.
Yeah. I think what Robert found in that was here's a proven world that has done well. So if we take that proven world and put it into targeted animation, we can make it fit the other category too. We can expand it with TV animation and bring in a different audience and bring in different viewers. And from that viewpoint, it had what the toy companies were looking for at that time. And I think I might have written out this story before, but what was interesting to me was, I was in the group at Mattel, and I was in the group called LSP, which is Large Dolls, Small Dolls, and Plush, which was basically anything but Barbie for girls. And one day I was handed that those pages that you have copies of now, which was the treatment for it. And they were like, do you know anything about Princess, or know anything about Riders of Pern? I'm like, oh, I love Dragonriders of Pern!
I can just sense your enthusiasm.
Oh yeah, I hopped right on it. I was so excited to be on it, and I read it through, and I gave my official response to it in writing, saying, "Oh, we really need to do this." Blah 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 blah, and then crickets, 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 and then one day, a Dragonriders of Pern T-shirt appeared on my desk, and that was it. I never heard another word, and later I found out, no, we passed on it.
Without really more explanation?
Yeah, I was given more explanation. Now, you got to remember, in that particular scenario, I was the bottom rung. So, they don't always tell the peons what they need to know. So that was really disappointing. It was like, I was so psyched out to do that. It was literally on my list of projects for me to do, and then it kind of went away. But as what I heard from Robert was that it was all set, ready to go, that even Mattel was interested, but Anne McCaffrey got cold feet and decided that she was afraid that animation would ruin look, feel, image of the wonderful world she created, and so she pulled the plug on allowing it to happen.
Now, someone said that Anne McCaffrey didn't want people to write fan fiction of her stuff. I don't know. Is that?
Yes, that was true.
Okay, so I'm just wondering now, again, another Disney reference, but is this kind of like P.L. Travers, where she's kind of like, didn't necessarily want her thing to be envisioned by someone else? It just seems like certain creatives, they really just don't want, their literary characters turned to media. Like, that's just not necessarily what they want to do,
From reading in author's notes in Anne McCaffrey books, I always got the impression that Pern was like the world closest to her heart. The one she was more attached to than any of the other things she's written. So I cannot kind of understand that she would really want to keep it in her own hands.
Yeah, or if not in her own hands, then in the hands of somebody she would implicitly trust.
Yeah. I mean, you honestly have to say that. I mean, I love Princess Gwenevere from the bottom of my heart. But every time I look at it, I wince at the animation quality.
It is a little special.
It is, and some of the shots are beautiful, and then they turn, and then it's like, what, which so I can understand. I mean, I get what her issues were, and I can't say I could blame her for any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the cartoon from the pages that we've read seems like it would have been aimed much more at teenagers than children, and most of the books are really more aimed at adults, so it would have been a definite change from Anne McCaffrey's vision of her world.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely was, and of course, and I can't remember now what the main character was called, but certainly Melanie was one of the primary characters of that cartoon push. It was her and her music and the dragons.
Phalesin was the son of Lessa and Falar.
Okay.
The main characters of the books.
Okay.
I think he was going to be the main male lead of that.
I guess I should have actually read that before I sent it to you. It's been a few years. But I was so excited when I was moving boxes the other day, and I found that folder and went, "Oh, they're gonna love this."
Absolutely.
Well, I think that Chris salivated all over it. I mean, that's exactly what you wanted. I mean, because one, you do like that literary, source. You enjoy the Dragonriders of Pern, but also just to see what the very, very early, because to us, Enchanted Camelot was as early as it got, and we had really only learned about that within the last couple of years. So to know that there was an even earlier idea that this sprung from, it's something that has kind of been going around the fandom for some time on the internet, but no one really ever had concrete evidence to say so.
Well, and the funny thing was I was on one of the big chat groups for Pern. I don't remember which one it was. But in fact, I think I'm still technically connected, but I've asked not for notifications anymore. And someone brought it up once, and I mentioned, hey, I was there. I read it. This is what had happened. You know, and then I got all of these, you know, armchair quarterbacks going,
She never would have done that.
And I thought, you know, like, look, I even gave my credentials in that statement saying, look, I was here at this time. I read this. And I talked to the producer, you know, but anyway. So I think that shortly after I stopped following that because those people, those fans, which it's a shame because I love Dragons of Pern. I go through Dragon's Singer and Dragon's Song probably once a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how much I love it. And then Dragon Drums maybe every 2 years or so. But yeah, I love that series, and so it was really a shame that it didn't happen. And so, oh well. Yeah.
You know, and it's funny because the whole reason why we wanted to discuss this was because when we had posted some of those materials on our social media, we just got this wave of interest from fans that were like, I had no idea that this was something that, you know, that they had tried to base upon Pern, and that's so cool. And I love that. And I love the Pern novels and everything. So I think with successful movies that have been created since, like How to Train Your Dragon and other movies, and like how we said, The Black Cauldron has a cult following, I think that there definitely would have been a cult following of a Dragonriders animated series, but I don't know if the right market for initial release would have reacted the way that they wanted it to. Again, I just don't think that the target market was the right demographic.
Well, and the one thing I will say is, at that particular time, I can't remember if she was the CEO or the president, but it was Jill Barad who had been running Mattel for a long time, whether she had the title or not. And she was instrumental. She was one of the people that made Barbie the gigantic success it was. And she was one of the first people really pushing for female empowerment. And then there's that whole tie-in of what happened at Mattel with the Wonder Woman and the Star Riders, which ironically I ended up stealing all of that tooling to make Disney toys. But then when I went to Kenner, I took those Disney toys and made those into Princess Gwenevere. But right. The thing, she was so passionate about making that happen, and actually making Wonder Woman happen, and actually got a VP at Warner Brothers behind her that allowed her to change colors of Wonder Woman just to be able to do that. But so the thought of if that really happened and Jill Barad was still pushing things, because she is a force to be reckoned with, it would have been interesting to see. You know, she wouldn't have put up with Bobot and their crap. She would have steamrolled over them and, you know, or bought their company and said, oh, yeah, now do it. You know, so from that aspect, I think it's very exciting. It's a very exciting possibility of what could have happened.
By the magic of the Sunstone, you're tuned into the Jewel Riders Archive.